Welcome to Bet On It, powered by Wager Talk TV. I'm Kelly Stewart, and I know you guys are not accustomed to seeing us during non-football season, but here we are. Let's bring in Marco D'Angelo and a guy you know from those other shows. That's right, Mr. Ralph Michaels, the man with the pin. He is the best, and actually, Marco, you can go ahead and tell the story if you'd like. This has been about 3 years in the making. 3 years ago, we were supposed to be at Caesars Palace hosting on the Bleacher Report stage when I worked for them, and the whole world got shut down. Kind of just fell to the wayside. College basketball doesn't have a lot of time to live on the internet, so we have some quick-hitting shows, which you can catch Joe Ranieri on if you guys are missing him today. College Basketball Happy Hour, NBA Tip-Off, just to name a few, but Ralph called and said, why aren't we doing a bet on Friday for college basketballs? And I just happened to look at my schedule and say, you know what, Ralph, you're right. We need a college basketball show for the people. Got Marco D'Angelo on board, and here we are. Did I forget anything, Marco?
No, you pretty much covered it all, but seeing Ralph there, I'm glad that you pointed out that was Ralph, because I thought Joe was hitting the booze way too hard because he was looking a little rough there, but glad to be working with my buddy Ralph. And you know what? Equal opportunity. I can bust the co-host's stones, whether it's Ralph or it's Joe. We'll have fun with the basketball. And yeah, Kelly, we were so close to being on the stage at Caesars Palace, and who knows where that would have went. But as you said, the world got shut down. What was it, that Friday? And we were going to be at Caesars that following Tuesday. So here we are. Let's see what we do with it, and looking forward to it. And usually when you guys say, hey, let's check the schedule, who's free and I always say, my schedule's wide open, except this is the one day of the week that I am jam-packed. So we got a tight schedule, so let's get to it.
Yeah, we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk some Big Ten, some SEC, some Big 12. Of course, give you guys some best bets. Check in with Andy Lang as far as Prop Shop. And, of course, Ralph is going to bring us some TNA. But we will get started with this first big game Saturday, 12 Eastern on ESPN. Illinois at Indiana. Right now, I've got my screen open. It looks like, wow, Indiana is a 4.5-point favorite. Kind of interesting here. They are the number 14 team in the country. Total 147. Marco, I've been betting against this Indiana team a couple of times. I prefer them in the dog role, if you will. I got a nice cash with them against Northwestern the other night, but I'm not sure I'm wanting to get involved here on Saturday with either one of these teams.
Yeah, Kelly, Indiana, you do want to look at them in the dog role because they do play good defense, and generally their games are going to be played in the 60s. So if both teams are in the 60s and one of them's getting points, that's usually a good way to go. But I'm looking at this one, and I'm going to look at the dog. No surprise there. And the reason being, we talk about revenge. And yes, Illinois plays with revenge here, and I point it out all the time. It's the most overused term in sports betting. But what I like to look at when we are talking about revenge is, was there anything, different about the first meeting? Something that stood out to me. And in this one, there is. I look at Illinois, and they shot about as bad as they could shoot in that game. They shot just 38% in that game, while Indiana shot an insane 62%. That's crazy, and it resulted in a easy victory for Indiana, 80-65. Now in the rematch, both teams are coming off losses in their last games. Illinois went to Penn State, and Penn State's been a team that has been up and down all year. 1 week they look like world beaters, and the next week they're just plain ugly. Well, midweek, they played host to Illinois, and they look like world beaters. They put up 93 against Illinois in a 93-81 victory. On the same notion, Indiana, coming off a gutty win against Michigan, went on the road to Northwestern, second game in a row on the road, and they lost another close game. Surprise, surprise, 64-62. I'm going to take the dog in this one. I think Indiana may find a way to win this one, but if they do, I'm looking at this to be a 1 to 3 point game either way. So as long as I'm getting more than 3 in this game, I am on the Fighting Illini for Saturday.
All right, Marco is taking the dog, and that's kind of the way that I lean here. I would give the little head nod with that one, but Ralph, I got to kick it over to you, and that's because you're now the new Joe Ranieri, and you know he does some weird stuff on this show. He loves to play those totals. He'll come in with the first half play. Are you getting involved in this total at all?
Yeah, Kelly, the one thing you forgot to mention when we were talking about setting up the show, while you said you were available on Friday, you forgot to put the asterisk in. I'm available Friday as long as I'm freaking done by happy hour. So let's not forget that part of the schedule on Friday.
Is that what I said? I did not say that, as a matter of fact. I'm pretty sure that I said I have another show at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 Pacific, and that Marco has to go down and see our good friend John Murray at the Westgate to do some radio.
Oh, is that what it was? Maybe I had to be off by happy hour. I knew it was one of us. So, I'm going to go. I lean Indiana, and I lean the under in this game. And there's a couple reasons. Obviously, anytime you're looking at a game, the line of 4 or 4.5, I do want to say this. We're filming this Friday early. There are no lines out. So these are all estimated lines we're using. They're not the openers. They're not actually bettable lines. But at this point in the year, we have a damn good idea of where the lines are going to be. So we're using what we think is going to be the line. So if there's a little difference, you understand that. Couple reasons I'm not going to get to the window with Indiana is this. There's not many times that a coach loses you a game. I'll tell you what, Brad Underwood for Illinois lost the game the first time. And yes, it wasn't close, but I'll tell you what, probably the best player or second best player in the Big Ten is Jackson Davis for Indiana. They never doubled Jackson Davis once last game, and he absolutely went off. So that's a concern for me. They're obviously going to double him this time. You know you have to. And for what he did in that game, that's an anomaly, which I think evens out to Illinois. Illinois, a very poor free throw shooting team. That has me leaning to the under. Of the 363 teams in college basketball this year, they are number 298 in free throw shooting. That's a negative, more of a negative when you're a favorite for a team trying to extend a game than it is a dog. But I look at Illinois, and I went to the database with this. We know the top 2 conferences in college basketball are the Big 12 and the Big 10. From top to bottom, any team can beat any team any given day. The schedules are brutal. The teams are physical. The teams play incredible defense. And this year in the Big 10, if you played a road game and you're on the road again this week with less than 5 days rest, so you're playing your normal 2 games a week schedule in the Big 10, you did not have an off day. Listen to this. The road teams like Illinois are 3-17 against the spread, 15% ATS. Does it make sense? Absolutely. Big physical game. Illinois went to Penn State. Before that, they were home against a physical Rutgers team. Before that, they were at Iowa. Indiana, only their 1 home game in a 5-game stretch. They're off back-to-back games at Michigan, at Northwestern. They got at Michigan State, at Purdue on deck. The other thing I want to mention is this. These teams, yes, you want to win games, but you have to remember there's not much pressure. Indiana is making the tournament. Illinois is making the tournament. I look at games differently when we get to this period in February or March for those teams that have to win for a chance to get to the big dance versus teams that are already in the big dance, no matter what happens from here on out or no matter what happens in the tournament. But I don't think Jackson Davis has anywhere near the performance he does. I think Illinois' defense, which is a top 30 defense in the KenPom ratings, Indiana, a top 36 team in KenPom ratings. I lean Indiana in the game, and I lean under as well.
All right, we are off and running just in time for that commercial break. When we come back, maybe we see a little bit of prop shop. I know that's not something you guys expected to hear on a college basketball show, but we have a special surprise from Andy Lang.
While the 2022-2023 football season officially ends today on Super Bowl Sunday, for many sports betting fans, college hoops in February and March is one of the most exciting times in sports. Whether you love college hoops or just want to pad your bankroll heading into March Madness, we have the perfect special. Starting today, get the rest of February with any Wager Talk or Sports Memo handicapper for only $149 each. So to finish off February for as little as $9 per day, head over to your favorite Wager Talk and or Sports Memo handicappers page and grab this limited time offer. This offer includes not only college basketball, but also any NBA, NHL, UFC, soccer, golf, and NASCAR that your favorite Wager Talk and or Sports Memo expert handicaps. No coupon is needed. The earlier you sign up, the more days you get.
Welcome back to Bet On It, powered by Wager Talk TV. Let's bring in a special guest. You guys may or may not remember him from the NFL edition of Bet On It. It's some time for Prop Shop. Andy Lang at Bump Sports. We are missing Miss Ariel Epstein. My heart will go on, though, Andy, because, well, you've got some nice NBA for us, and everybody at home going, why are we talking NBA? This is a college basketball show. No, it's going to be a mix of both. Andy's going to be bringing us some really great info throughout the rest of the season in regards to the NBA, some teams to buy on, some teams to sell, and maybe even a couple of prop winners, Andy.
Yeah, so we got the All-Star break, and this is a great time to just kind of take a few days, reset, and get your plan together for what we expect after the All-Star break. We've got trades, so we have a lot of teams with new rosters. We've got teams that are tanking, teams that are just trying to decide if they want to tank, and then we've got playoff seedings. We have a lot of interesting teams that are in the play-in right now that don't want to be in the play-in. They want to sneak into the playoffs. So let's talk about a couple teams. I'll do my first team I'm buying. And if you bet against the spread, you know the Oklahoma City Thunder have just been the darlings of the betting world against the spread. They're number one in covering the spread, Kelly, this year. They're already over their season win total. And this was a team that most thought was going to be in tank mode for the year. Instead, they're the 10th seed in the West. They have a chance. And this is a team nobody wants to see in a play-in tournament, and especially in the playoffs. They have one of the best players in the league, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And shockingly, they are 11th this year in defensive rating. So they've been getting it done. They still haven't gotten the respect from the books because they keep being these bigger underdogs against teams that they continue to cover against. So I'm buying the Oklahoma City Thunder moving forward. I don't think the books have caught up yet. I don't expect it to last for the rest of the season. And then the team I'm selling is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Listen, the Rudy Gobert trade is turning out to be one of the worst trades in NBA history. They just traded D'Angelo Russell, and I know D'Angelo Russell has his issues with being point guard, but they put Mike Conley in there, and I don't know. Mike Conley past his prime. You've got the injury with Karl Anthony Towns. I just don't trust this team. They have a very, very tough schedule moving forward. I don't trust anybody outside of Anthony Edwards right now on this team, so they don't have health with Karl Anthony Towns. Rudy Gobert, you can't trust in crunch time. So I'm not really sure what the ceiling is for this team, but I believe it's pretty low. So team I'm selling is the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I would have to agree with that one, Andy. I know a lot of people know that I don't handicap NBA till basically the start of the playoffs, and that's because there's a lot of other things going on, whether it's college football, NFL, college basketball, but it's basically because of load management. Everything that you started off with talking about. After the All-Star break, we pretty much have a good idea of how teams are looking to finish out their season, as you mentioned. But now let's talk about some players in particular that you're looking at to either play on or play against for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, here's three names and how you can play them moving forward. So I'll first talk about a couple guys going under, and we'll start with Tobias Harris. His unders have been hitting 6 out of the last 7 games. Actually, I think it's 7 out of 8 under his points, rebounds, and assists. And after the trades, we're seeing McDaniels take a few minutes away from him, and he's just not a top scoring option on this team. You know, they're going to be going to Harden. They're going to be going to Embiid. It looks like Maxey coming off the bench is going to continue to get a lot of production. So Tobias Harris is just kind of the odd man left out. So I would look at unders for Harris. The other guy is Alperen Sengun on his unders, points, rebounds, and assists. They were using him as a big facilitator in the offense at Houston, but since Kevin Porter Jr. went out, his stats have really fallen off a cliff. You got a lot of good things going for his under. First off, he's in foul trouble all the time. Like anytime he comes into the game, he's a walking foul waiting to happen. They get blown out all the time, so he sits in the fourth quarter quite a bit. And this is a team that doesn't want to win games. They want to put other guys off the bench, get them playing time, and not have their best players on there. So Alperen Sengun checks a lot of boxes for unders. And then here's a name most people don't know, but boy, has he been an over machine just recently. Malachi Branham of the San Antonio Spurs. Listen, he's like the only guard left right now. Vassell is out. Trey Jones is out. Romeo Langford is out. Those are all the guards listed in front of him. And he's gone over his points, rebounds, and assists in 6 out of 8 games. He's just getting there just because he's playing a ton of minutes. The Spurs are tanking. I don't think they're going to be playing their best guards. So Malachi Branham, as long as they keep his points, rebounds, and assists in the low 20s, he's going to get there just because of his volume of minutes. So those are some sneaky guys to look forward to in the last part of the NBA season.
I like that, Andy. Looking for those diamonds in the rough. Speaking of, this is a bet that I didn't even know you could make midseason, and maybe I should be keeping up with the NBA a little bit more, but you have a free play, if you will. I won't call it a best bet because it is All-Star break, but this one should be available up until next Friday when I see you again.
Yeah, so this is a win total, and it's a win total for the entire season. So the Minnesota Timberwolves, the books have their win total at 40.5, and I'm going to take the under. So they have 31 wins now. So they're going to need 10 wins to get over this total, and I just don't see it. First off, you got to look at the schedule, and they've got a tough one. They start with Charlotte, which should be a win, but then they go at Golden State, at Clippers, at Lakers, at Kings. They play Philly, they play Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, Toronto, New York, Atlanta, Golden State again, Sacramento, Phoenix, the Lakers. These are teams that are in the playoffs. They end with New Orleans, and here's the big thing about the Timberwolves. At home, they're 20-13. On the road, they're 11-17. They play 21 games after the All-Star break, and 13 of those on the road, and they're not easy matchups. I just don't buy this team. We talked about it earlier, but that road and home discrepancy is a gigantic red flag. Too many tough matchups on the road. Give me the Timberwolves to not get to 10 wins after the All-Star break, and that makes the bet the Timberwolves under 40.5 wins for the season.
And Andy, that's widely available at all U.S. books?
Yes, you can find that on all the books right now. Just go to the NBA section, and it'll say like wins/playoffs or wins/totals. They're widely available.
Awesome. Love that from Andy at Bump Sports on Twitter. Andy, we will see you next week. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk about maybe a game in the SEC you guys are interested in.
Well, the 2022-2023 football season officially ends today on Super Bowl Sunday. For many sports betting fans, college hoops in February and March is one of the most exciting times in sports. Whether you love college hoops or just want to pad your bankroll heading into March Madness, we have the perfect special. Starting today, get the rest of February with any Wager Talk or Sports Memo handicapper for only $149 each. So to finish off February for as little as $9 per day, head over to your favorite Wager Talk and or Sports Memo handicappers page and grab this limited time offer. This offer includes not only college basketball, but also any NBA, NHL, UFC, soccer, golf, and NASCAR that your favorite Wager Talk and or Sports Memo expert handicaps. No coupon is needed. The earlier you sign up, the more days you get.
Welcome back to Bet On It. Keeping on that college basketball train, let's head over to the SEC. And Ralph, the Barstool Sportsbook has lines up right now, mid-show. Number Tennessee, Kentucky. Kentucky is a 3-point home underdog, total 133. So you were off 0 points on the total from the line that you sent me. And shockingly, this one's a little shorter than you expected. Your thoughts on the Kentucky Wildcats facing the Tennessee Volunteers?
Well, Kelly, I'm shorter than it, obviously, because the injuries with Tennessee. You know, you have 2 players that missed last games, two starters that missed last game. So, you know, those 2 players being questionable or game time decision changes this line quite a bit. It's a game that I'd be afraid to bet until I get some updates on them tomorrow morning. But obviously you have a situation where Tennessee lost at home to Kentucky. And when I went to the database and took a look, the first upset, when a team in the same season loses as a home favorite of 10 or more, and they're an AP top 10 team. So when Tennessee back on January 14th lost 63-56, Kentucky played the perfect game. Those teams in revenge are only 37.5%. So Marco talked about revenge being overrated, and I'm sure when we read articles tomorrow about this game, how many times are we going to read, oh my God, you had an AP top 10 team losing at home as a double-digit favorite. But again, going to the database, when those teams like Tennessee head on the road, they have only covered 37.5% in the last 7 years. That's something to take a look at. Now you also have a situation where Tennessee is off a win against beating number 1 Alabama. If you saw highlights or watched that game, you saw the checkerboard crowd like they do in football. You see them knocking down the AP number 1. You see them taking down their rival. And what happens? They played a almost perfect game, knocking off knocking off Alabama. And that was with 2 starters missing. Now you go on the road. You're off that massive upset. You're playing 3 days later off that win. Kentucky has nothing to lose. They're a veteran team. John Calipari, yes, they lost at home against Arkansas. They lost away against Georgia. Marco talked about Penn State being wishy-washy, sometimes looking like a giant killer, sometimes looking like a piece of crap. Kentucky's that same way. A 17-9 record is not what anyone expects. An 8-5 record in the SEC is not what anyone expects. But you still have Oscar T, probably the best player in college basketball. You're at home, off that away win against Mississippi State. You have a defense that has performed extremely well down the road. So a couple notes in this game. Make sure you're checking out Tennessee's players. I do like the way Kentucky is starting to play defense. They talked about Calipari, put it out. We're starting to get a little bit of all of it. We came out. Remember that when we play defense, we're as good as any team in the country. I'm expecting Kentucky to come out fast. I'm expecting Tennessee to come out a little bit exposed off their win against the number 1 at home. And since you said Joe Ranieri throws up halftime lines, how about this? I'm going to go with Kentucky first half plus 2.5. It may be plus 2 now with the opening line of 3, but I still like them to come out big. I think Tennessee has too much depth, especially if both starters are back. But I will go with the Wildcats with or without those Tennessee players in the first half plus the points.
I like that too, Ralph. Nice situation there with Tennessee coming off that monster win on Wednesday night over the top-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. Marco, something that Ralph said was really interesting to me. In college football, we do our show on Wednesdays. I already have my bets pretty much locked and loaded for the week. I bet on Monday, Tuesday, and sometimes on Wednesday, but then I'm pretty much good to go. In terms of Saturday college basketball, when do you like to put in your bets? Because there is a lot of question marks here on Friday afternoon, and sometimes you get the wrong information, then the line moves a couple points. What are your recommendations on when you should be betting college basketball? Because at this point in time, the opening numbers are already gone.
Yeah, Kelly, and the opening numbers, and here's the thing about Fridays. As you said, Barstool is out already. We'll have, one of the Vegas books will put their numbers up early. And then you see that first wave of betting. And generally that is regarded as the sharp money, guys that are looking pick off numbers. So for me, I like to see the numbers settle. And I'll start looking at the game early Friday evening and start lining up what I'm going to do for Saturday and where I'm going to put my bets in. But if there's games like this one where you've got a couple key players involved, you're going to wait till Saturday morning and try to gather as much information as you can. And it's a always moving market on Saturdays in college basketball. It's a very busy time for me, and then trying to do a couple media spots with that makes for hectic Saturday mornings. At least it's West Coast time instead of East Coast whenever you're doing it 3 hours earlier. So let's head into this one, Kelly. And what I'm looking at in this one, this is a second meeting. Yes, it is a revenge game. Looking at the first meeting, what stood out to me in that first meeting is how bad Tennessee shot in that game. Tennessee was only 3 of 21 from three-point range. That's 14% from three-point land. Their season average, they hit 33%. They make 8 threes per game. That was one thing. The fact that they lost that game, if you look at Tennessee this season, they had a stretch from November 16th through January 28th. They went 17-2 straight up during that period. There are only 2 losses. One of them was on the road to Arizona. We know Arizona's top 25 team, very good team. And then this game that they lost to Kentucky, and they shot so poorly. Now, since then, they're just 2-3 in their last 5 games. That's a little bit of a problem for me when I look at this team and what they're doing recently, and part of that is because of the injuries. The guard, James, has missed 3 straight games, and the forward, Phillips, missed the last game. Now, I think he probably could have played the last game. It was a game-time decision, but they went on the side of caution there and kept him out, use him tonight, or I should say tomorrow afternoon. What I'm looking in this game, though, is rather than blindly jump on the revenge angle with Tennessee here, because they are coming off that big win against Alabama being number 1. Yes, Alabama was the number 1 team, but whenever you do the pecking order in college basketball, Kentucky's still a bigger name in college basketball. Even though Alabama's number 1 right now, this is a big game, and it is revenge. But where I'm going to head is I'm going to look at the total. And Ralph was right on with the 133 for his line on this game. I'm looking for them to get to the 145 mark in this one. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game than the first meeting. One, because they can't shoot as poorly as they did in that game. Not only were they bad in that game from the three-point line, they weren't good from the foul line either in that game. They didn't get to the foul line that often. So I'm looking for a faster tempo, and Kentucky being the team that's pushing that. Now, Ralph mentioned Kentucky playing better defense. Yeah, when they play better defense, they're a much better team. There's no question. But 2 of the last 3 games, they've allowed 62% shooting and 50% shooting. That's not great defense. And I think you're going to see Tennessee score more in this one, but I also think Kentucky's going to force the issue. Because if Tennessee is shorthanded, what do you want to do? You want to have more possessions. You want to take them out of the comfort zone. And if those guys come back, are they going to be 100%? If they're not, you want to run them up and down the floor. So with that said, I am looking for a higher scoring game. You're going to get value because of the first game was low scoring. You're going to get value because the other night there was a low scoring game with Tennessee and Alabama. And do you think Tennessee will have that same intensity defensively that they had against number 1 Alabama at home? I don't think so. Look for this one to get into the 70s. We're going to take over on Saturday, Tennessee, Kentucky.
Ooh, that's going to be a tricky one for me to get on board with, Marco, but I would agree with your analysis. Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern, ESPN, Baylor, that's right, the number 9 ranked team in the country takes on the 5th ranked team in Allen Fieldhouse, the Kansas Jayhawks. Jayhawks 5-point favorites total, currently 153.5, pretty much across the board on the Wager Talk odds screen. This one's tough, Marco. I'm not going to lie to you. Baylor has kind of had an unprecedented season, right? And for a magnitude of reasons, I would probably argue maybe they're missing Jerome Tang as their assistant head coach. But more than recently, since they dropped that 3-game losing streak at the end of December, they've been playing really, really well. And this is not necessarily a team I want to step in front of. But if you guys watch some of the other shows that I do, you know I have a do not bet list. And a do not bet against list. The Kansas Jayhawks have been burning my money the last 3 games. It was a good one against Iowa State 2 weeks ago, but since then, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State could not get the job done for me here. I've been saying that it's still Kansas's conference to lose, but I do think Baylor can give them a little bit of run for their money here with the number 1 rated offense over at Ken Palm. Marco, I'm going to kick it right back to you. Help me make sense of this game.
Well, Kelly, we know, and I don't want to bring it up to you. Yes, this is Kansas's conference. Year in and year out, we always think somebody's going to knock them off, but they generally find a way to get to the top of the charts in the Big 12. Kansas did lose the first meeting at Baylor. Now, since that loss, They're 5-1 straight up. Their only loss, I can make a case for why they lost that game, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. Kansas, when they lost to Iowa State, was coming off the Big 12 SEC challenge, in which they drew Kentucky, 2 blue bloods. Even though Kentucky is down this year, it's still the name Kentucky. So that was a big win for Kansas. They were up for that one. But it was the second game after the Kentucky game that was the one that was circled in red for the Kansas Jayhawks, and that was their friends, the Kansas State team. The Wildcats, you know what happened in that first one, Kelly. You were there. You saw Kansas State win on their home floor in that heated rivalry. It was a big revenge game, and Kansas got the job done. They got it done in grand fashion. 14-point victory, or 12-point victory, 90-78. And then what did they do after those 2 big wins? Well, they went on the road to Iowa State a couple days later on a Saturday and lost. That was a game that, yes, you were on Iowa State. I was on Iowa State. I think we all were, because it was a perfect situational play. But since then, they came right back and bounced back, and talk about a sandwich off of the rivalry game revenge. And they had Texas on deck, who at the time was first place in the Big 12. That accounts for that loss. Now you could say, but Marco, look at Baylor. They're 10-1 straight up their last 11 games. Kelly, they are. But of those 10 wins for Baylor, only the Kansas game that they won earlier and the Texas game was against a team in the top 5 in the Big 12. They've been beating up on the bottom half of the Big 12, and although the Big 12 is deep this year, there's still a difference between the top half and the bottom half. I like Kansas in revenge here. Kansas is 12-1 straight up at home. This is one of those spots where I am going to go for the revenge call. I'm going to take Kansas. I'm going to lay the points here. I've got Kansas winning 76-69.
All right, 76-69, Marco says. Ralph Michaels, I don't know if it's going to be quite that sparse, we'll say. I think it might be a little bit of a closer game here, but I would agree. I got burnt last night. I took 2 teams in what I bet against 2 teams, in revenge situations, and I got smoked. What do you make of the revenge spot here for the Jayhawks, and what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Associates Kansas with the Big 12 as they've dominated the conference. But the last 3 years, that's not true. Remember, 2 years ago, Baylor was 13-1, won the Big 12. Last year, both teams tied at 9-4. Guess what? Both teams are tied this week. So while I talked about Indiana and Illinois, and yes, you're going to make the tournament no matter what, when you're fighting for first place and winning the Big 12 regular season, there is much more intensity in that than you might find. Marco talked about Baylor. Yes, the 4-game stretch looks awesome, but again, all 4 of those teams were bottom half of the Big 12 that they faced. That's a difficult scheduling spot, playing not a weakling, but a lower echelon, and now going to Lawrence in front of College game day, which will excite that crowd even more. Now, the Baylor team, whatever you're accustomed to watching the Baylor Bears, throw out the window from the last 4 years. You used to be able to count their defense efficiency on all 10 fingers, and maybe 10 fingers and 10 toes. But this year, they're not. They've changed their concept. They don't have that defensive presence in, or do they? Well, let's remember Ken Palm has them rated number 78 in defense. Again, a very good number, but know what we're accustomed to with Baylor. Kelly, you mentioned the number 1 most efficient in offense. But do remember this moving forward for the Baylor Bears. Jonathan Tuacha, JTT, was the defensive player of the year. He tore ligaments last year. He missed the last 12 or 15 games of last year. He missed the first 20-some games this year. He came back 4 games ago. And no, he hasn't started. And yes, he's only averaging 20 minutes a game. His presence moving forward will be something that completely keep the Baylor keep your eyes on with the Baylor Bears. I expect their defense to pick up immensely from here on out as he starts progressing and plays more minutes. On the Kansas side, I have no problems backing Kansas in this situation except this. If you watch the Oklahoma State game last week when Oklahoma, or on Tuesday, Valentine's Day, where Kansas won 87-76, McCullough and Jawan Harris, those two players have started the first 25 games of the season, 51 combined starts between them. They both got hurt the last few minutes of the Oklahoma State game. So if you're playing this game with two starters or two banged up starters, there's no way I want any part of it. Make sure you read the Lawrence Journal tomorrow morning to see what their status is. It could be a big difference in this game. With that said, I actually do like the under. These two teams know conference winners. If you look, this team has won or shared. These two teams have won or shared the conference for, I think, at least 10 years. It's going to be an incredible intensity. I expect the defense for performance to pick up. And the last time Baylor and Kansas topped this total in the 150s, January 2nd, 2016. It's been a long time. Yes, Baylor's efficient in offense. Yes, their defense is poor. Kansas, we know what to expect. I'm looking for a playoff-type atmosphere, an incredible intense game, and I do like the under here.
That's really interesting. Our good friend Drew Martin Betts, who you guys do a couple other different shows with, texted me the other day and he goes, KIV, have you been paying attention to these Big 12 overs? They were just flying over the total, and the second he texted me, guess what happened to all the Big 12 totals this week? They started to revert back. We've seen some regression. So, Ralph, I do agree with you on that under. Marco, I'm kicking you out of here. We're going to commercial break. When I come back, it's time for a little time. Did I say that wrong? I did. It's time for some TNA with just Ralph.
While the 2022-2023 football season officially ends today on Super Bowl Sunday, for many sports betting fans, college hoops in February and March is one of the most exciting times in sports. Whether you love college hoops or just want to pad your bankroll heading into March Madness, we have the perfect special. Starting today, get the rest of February with any Wager Talk or Sports Memo handicapper for only $149 each. So to finish off February for as little as $9 per day, head over to your favorite Wager Talk and or Sports Memo handicappers page and grab this limited time offer. This offer includes not only college basketball, but also any NBA, NHL, UFC, soccer, golf, and NASCAR that your favorite Wager Talk and or Sports Memo expert handicaps. No coupon is needed. The earlier you sign up, the more days you get.
You know what these mean. That's right. It's time to see the man with all the nerd charts and the magic pen, Mr. Ralph Michaels at Cal Sports LV, is back with some TNA for this Saturday's college basketball. Ralph, I'm excited to have you back. I haven't seen you since the NFL playoffs, so it's been a few weeks. Well, I mean, I've seen you to start this show, but in terms of TNA, we all know how much I love those trends and angles to back up my handicap. Tell me what you've got dug up for us this week.
Yeah, Kelly, I've been going through some TNA withdrawal. I want to preface this segment with this. I think the number one sport to use systems is the NBA. Obviously, the NBA on an all-star break. I'll be back next Friday with some great NBA situations to bet on it. And while I look at trends and angles and systems in college basketball, I do want to say this. There are 363 teams. There are so many unique situations that of all the sports, I put the least weight on these systems in college basketball. Again, I look at them. They're important. But I don't get those go-to automatic plays. I also wanted to break down situations that are easy for you to look at and find. In college basketball and the NFL, anytime I gave you a system, a trend, or an angle, I was able to tell you which teams it applies to. Without having the lines for the Saturday and Sunday games, you're going to have to do the work here. So I'm going to start with 4 systems, and then we're going to have a nerd chart, and I'll try to explain it as I can. Please do write them down. Take a look at if these apply to any teams tomorrow. And the first one I'm going to start with is a system that is a 70% winner since 2014. The system reads as such. you have a team that lost as a favorite by 15 or more. So you're off a bad loss. You're the better team. You got beat pretty handily. Your opponent won their last game, and now you're an away dog of 11.5 or more. So you lost as a favorite by 15 or more. Your opponent won the game, and now you're a big away dog. Well, guess what? Those teams that lost as the favorite by 15 or more have gone 70%, 42 wins, 18 losses. So not a huge sample size. Again, there's not many times a favorite loses by 15 points and is then an away dog of 11 or more. But that goes all the way back to 2014. That's system number 1. System number 2. I can't tell you if you're watching this on Friday, there is a game that this applies to tonight, and that is on Harvard. Here's the system. You lost your last game as a home favorite. You lost 2 games ago as a home favorite, and now you're an away favorite of 3.5 or more. So you have a team disappointing back-to-back games, losing outright as a home favorite. Now you're the better team on the road as a favorite of 3 or more. This system, going back to 2012, 66%. It does apply to Harvard Friday night, and make sure to check all the situations that applies to on Saturday. And here's one more Ivy system I want to talk about. This is one of my favorites. The Ivy, when you get into late January and February, plays back-to-back days. They don't travel during the week. They put a premium on their education. They don't want to take kids away and have them travel during the Monday through Thursday period. So when Ivy teams play, you play at home Friday, Saturday, or on the road Friday and Saturday. So when an Ivy team loses at home on Friday, and then they're a home favorite on Saturday with no rest, those teams since 2012 have hit 65.9%. And it makes total sense. The team on the road, back-to-back games, no rest traveling. The home team, off an embarrassing home loss. Now they're a home favorite, a 66% mark. Check out Saturday if any of the Friday night Ivy teams do lose at home, and they're a home favorite tomorrow. And the final one does apply to Friday night as well. We'll also see how many more times it happens during the weekend. But if you won your last 2 games outright as a home dog, and now you're at home with the line between the 5s, and your opponent is off a home loss, since 2017, those teams, 69%. Guess what? That applies to San Jose State tonight, and I will tell you this, that is an actual client release for me on San Jose State. So teams that win back-to-back games as a dog, you're at home, competitive game with the lines between the 5s, and an opponent that's off a home loss, 69% on San Jose State. So 4 systems to keep an eye on, and hopefully they bring you a great deal of success.
I love it, Ralph. I love it. I love it. I was literally doing air fist pumps when I heard you say San Jose State. I've been doing pretty well in the Mountain West this year, and that is my play for tonight as well. So always fun to be in good company with you in terms of betting aside. Now, let's get to the good stuff. We all know I'm a very visual person, so Ralph spends time out of his day, and I don't even know if he uses Excel or what he uses, but he makes these lovely little nerd charts for me that I can actually comprehend.
Well, Kelly, it's college basketball. And no matter if you were the AP #1 to start the preseason or you were a crappy team, almost every college basketball team's goal is to get to at least 20 wins. That's the benchmark. So I wanted to look at how teams do when they get to 19 wins. So the chart has 3 parts. And if we could see the chart, the top part is simply how teams do at 19 wins, how teams do at home with 19 wins, how 2 teams do away with 19 wins. And if you look, it's 48.8% under the Mendoza line. At home, it's under the Mendoza line. And if you're on the road with 19 wins, you have only covered 46.5% since 2015. So there is some pressure involved when you get to 19 wins trying for the 20th win. But when I broke down what happens to the game before, you see the middle section off a previous loss. So that means you are sitting at 19 wins and you lost your last game. The bottom section off a previous win. That means you had 18 wins, you won your last game, you now have 19 wins. So what happens when you're going to game 20? A lot of red on these charts, Kelly. Take a look. If you are off a loss, and I want to mention something. The final system we talked about was a play on San Jose State, a 69% system. Well, guess what? Teams off a previous loss as a home favorite have only covered 40.6%. Who's San Jose State playing? New Mexico. Guess what? New Mexico was off a loss as a home favorite. So that play on San Jose State, 69%. We also have a 41% system on New Mexico, a double up. Teams that lost their last game as a home dog, only 42.9%. Teams that lost their last game as an away favorite, 47.8%. There's only one positive situation for teams that are off a loss. If you lost as an away dog, you have actually covered 54.8%. If you're off a win, the numbers aren't as bad, but again, they're all under 500. 47.6, 48, 47.2, and a win off away dog, 50.7. So if a team has 19 wins, there is pressure. They are a situation to look to play against them, with the exception of if you are a loss as an away dog. And like always, Cal, I will post this on Twitter at CalSportsLV. There's a lot of information to look at a short period of time, but start taking a look at those teams that have 19 wins going for that big number 20.
Ralph, I could have used this last Saturday. My Kansas State Wildcats have been looking for that elusive 20th win for about a week and a half now, but we'll see. Maybe they can get it done on Saturday against Iowa State. You guys will have to wait till we bring in Marco for some best bets to see if I think that they will. All right, it's time for those best bets, and I'm going to take some low-hanging fruit here. This college basketball season, full disclosure, has been a roller coaster ride, but I'm hoping we can finish out the season strong here through February and into March Madness. I'm going to take the Kansas State Wildcats -2.5 back at home in the Octagon of Doom, a sort of buy low spot, if you will, right? We know they're off those two ugly road losses in Lubbock, in Norman, just gross. There's been a lot of revenge talk today, and I wouldn't necessarily think that K-State has revenge on their mind. They played a really hard-fought game against Iowa State, who was laying way too many points in that one. K-State did get the cover, and Iowa State got the win. Now, the reason why I think this is important is it correlates with what Ralph is saying. This Wildcats team has been looking for that elusive 20th win. Now, mind you, was projected to win 0 Big 12 games. If they can hit this 20th win, headed into Waco on Tuesday, I think we will see those kind of things correlate. That being said, what I really like to use as a handicap is KenPom Plus. If you guys watch my other shows, I've told you why 100 times, but I will tell you guys why. And that is because you can manipulate the data. Iowa State in Hilton, absolute magic. Iowa State on the road, not so much. They have not won on the road since January 7th versus TCU. This home-road dichotomy is completely different. And that is just because Iowa State is kind of one of those, for lack of better words, slower paced teams. We know they have a really solid defense. They like to take teams out of their rhythm, but they cannot go out there on someone else's court and run with the big dogs. I think that's what we're going to see here versus a Kansas State team desperately needing a win. So I'm going to lay the 2.5 points here with the Wildcats. Marco D'Angelo, who is your best bet for Saturday in college basketball?
Well, Kelly, I'm going to stay close to home here with the Mountain West Conference. We follow that one here with UNLV being in it, but I'm not using a UNLV game. I'm going to use Utah State, and they will be at home playing Nevada. Now, we're expecting Utah State to be minus around 3.5 points in this game. I like them to win this game by 8 or more, and here's why. Nevada did win the first meeting 85-70. Note, Nevada is a perfect 13-0 straight up this year at home. Utah State, 12-2 straight up at home this year. They're 6-3 straight up over their last 9 games. But 2 of those 3 losses came to San Diego State. San Diego State is the top team in the Mountain West Conference, and they're a top 25 team nationally. The other game that they lost in that 6-3 run was to San Jose State, just a couple days after they played San Diego State at home and lost a gut-wrenching game, 63-61. That was a big game for Utah State. They played a magnificent game and just came up short. Off of the gut-wrenching loss, you've heard us use the phrase, lose the same game twice. Well, that's what I think happened to them in the San Jose State game. So if you take out San Diego State out of the equation, this team, 6-3, San Diego State had a direct responsibility for all 3 losses, in my opinion. They're playing Nevada at home. I think they get the job done. And if you look at the first meeting, Utah State only shot 39% from the field in that 15-point loss, while Nevada was 55% from the field and an insane 47% from three-point land. Utah State's played good defense in their last 3 games, holding their opponents to 39, 41, and 43% shooting. I look for them to get the job done. I think Nevada's overrated. I'm going to go ahead and take Utah State and lay the points as my best bet.
Nevada, again, one of those interesting home-road dichotomy type teams. I like Utah State as well. Marco, they are on my long list for Saturday. Ralph Michaels coming in hot with some TNA, joining us here on Bet On It throughout college basketball season. Let's start it off with a 1-0 best bet.
Kelly, before I get to the best bet, we've mentioned Ken Palm quite a bit on this show. A great tool for you to utilize when you're handicapping your games. I want to mention one more resource, which I like even more than Ken Palm, which is hard to say. It's barttorvik.com, BARTTORVIK. When you go to that site, you'll see the same adjusted offense, defense, overall. But with barttorvik.com, you can adjust to look at home or away or neutral versus quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, quad 4, or ranked teams. So it's just a great site. Again, I have no affiliation with them, but just trying to help our viewers to have some more resources as they look at games. My best bet is going to be on Rice. Yeah, it's not going to be a very popular game. It's game 762, and I expect them to be laying about 3 points. Here's a little bonus TNA, Kel. College basketball is a long season. You get into your conference, you start playing multiple games in a week. CUSA plays games Thursday and Saturday. That's even more of a disadvantage for those teams traveling, playing 2 games in 3 days. Western Kentucky is off an overtime win. They lost on the road. They're on the road again, and they have less than 2 days rest. Those teams have covered only 35.9%. Western Kentucky played at Charlotte. Again, an overtime loss. There are 363 Division I teams. Charlotte is number 362 in terms of tempo. The only team slower paced than them is their conference counterpart, North Texas. So Western Kentucky, a slow physical game, playing in overtime, now going to Rice, playing the most up-tempo team in the conference and number 43 in the country. Rice shoots a lot of threes. They're number 36 in the number of threes. They're top 100 in percentage. Guess what? Western Kentucky's three-point defense, number 323, one of the worst in the country. Scheduling spot, situational spot, matchup spot, all point to Rice. Game 762 on Saturday.
Ralph's digging deep in the 700s to find you guys a best bet. I love it. We're going to take our last commercial break. When we come back, it's time for the recap.
While the 2022-2023 football season officially ends today on Super Bowl Sunday, for many sports betting fans, college hoops in February and March is one of the most exciting times in sports. Whether you love college hoops or just want to pad your bankroll heading into March Madness, we have the perfect special. Starting today, get the rest of February with any Wager Talk or Sports Memo handicapper for only $149 each. So to finish off February for as little as $9 per day, head over to your favorite Wager Talk and or Sports Memo handicappers page and grab this limited time offer. This offer includes not only college basketball, but also any NBA, NHL, UFC, soccer, golf, and NASCAR that your favorite Wager Talk and or Sports Memo expert handicaps. No coupon is needed. The earlier you sign up, the more days you get.
Typically, I would just throw up a graphic, rattle off the plays, and end the show, but guess who forgot to check with Marco? Marco D'Angelo has a promo right now up at wagertalk.com. Marco, with your giant foam finger, you can take the floor.
Okay, Kelly. Well, this special is actually good for any handicapper at Wager Talk. You can pick up the rest of February for just $149. Normally $99 per week for all access. You can get the rest of February for $149. And it's a very good time to jump on board. Yours truly. Since Thanksgiving, my basketball plays are 88 and 44 for a net profit of just under $12,000, playing just $100 per unit. Guys, we're number one since Thanksgiving with all basketball plays. That's NBA and college basketball. So take advantage of that special offer for me or any of the cappers at Wager Talk right now.
Awesome stuff, Marco. Now time for the recap. Let's throw up that graphic. Saturday college basketball. We got some top 25 matchups. This one's kind of close enough to that. Both teams are going to make the tournament. Illinois, Indiana, under 147 for Ralph. Marco says he will take the dog in the Illini plus 4.5. Tennessee at Kentucky, looking for some revenge here maybe on the Vol side, but Ralph says, hey, don't overthink it. Kentucky +2 in the first half. Maybe Tennessee is a little excited coming off that win over Alabama. Marco is going to take the over 133. Baylor, Kansas under 153.5 for Ralph. As we mentioned, these totals in the Big 12 have been sky high for a reason, but now we're starting to see some of that regression. Marco's playing the revenge angle here as well. Kansas -5. Andy Lang's looking for some mid-season win totals. That's right, the Minnesota Timberwolves under 40.5 wins. I'm taking the low-hanging fruit with my Kansas State Wildcats -2.5. Mind you, I am 3-0 with this team betting on or against this year. For Ralph, Rice -3. He had to dig deep for that one. And Marco's staying close to home and laying the 3.5 with Utah State. All right, guys, that was the first edition, college basketball edition of Bet On It. We're going to be hanging out with you through March. Not sure when our last show is going to be, but we're going to try to make the most of it. As always, from Marco, Ralph, Andy, and myself, good luck. Until next Friday, let's bet on it.